Welcome back. We're live, pal. Andrew Zarin and I here. This is our first show of 2023, yeah?
Yeah,
We were
man.
off last week.
We took off last week, and this is our first show for 2023. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. So we didn't get to talk about some of the things from last week because I wanted to talk about a little bit about, Wrestle Kingdom and such. But, of course, as it always happens, big news came before the weekend with this Vince stuff. And I know that you've talked about it on Mat Men and on Wrestling Observer Live. I've talked about it with Dave and on Fight Game Podcast, but we haven't talked about it together. So I do want to spend some time talking about this Vince stuff, man. So where do you sit now? It's Tuesday, January 10th. He is back in business as far as being back in the company, though he's not in charge as far as we know. He says that he will not be in creative. Everyone else's job is sort of the secure right now. And what is your Tuesday afternoon take on what's going on with Vince right now?
So on Sunday, I did Wrestling Observer Live, and I had John Alba on, and he was a great help breaking this down for everybody. If you haven't checked it out, John did a great job with me on Sunday. He's saying he's not in charge, but I mean, listen, you know what it's like. You work in a corporate environment, so do I.
Yeah.
I've been in many corporate environments. You've worked for startups, you've worked for big companies. If the executive chairman of the board is around, you don't think people are going to appease him with what they're doing, with the work that they do, considering the fact that this guy ran the business for 40 some odd years. When Vince is around, now that people know that Vince is, in a top position in the company, you don't think the mentality is going to shift a little bit to appease that? Of course it is. I don't think Vince is going to be hands-on with creative right now. I don't think WWE wants that image out there. But if Vince is not happy with something, I'm willing to bet that they're going to listen. It's not like they're going to say, hey, old man, you said you're not going to get involved. That concept to me makes no sense at all. I definitely think he's going to have, his fingerprints are going to be involved in stuff. I don't necessarily think he's going to sit there and rewrite scripts for Monday Night Raw, but if he doesn't like something and he doesn't like a direction, he's going to be pretty vocal about it. He's not a type not to be.
So I agree with you, and there's going to be a lot of political tea leaf reading going on. But as far as we know, is he even in the office now? In companies today, you don't have to be in the office to be an active participant in the day to day. But I think folks, I think the dynamic definitely changes if he starts walking around. I guess there's going to be a new Titan Towers, right? The new Titan Towers, and he's kind of strutting around, throwing his weight around. I think that's a little bit of a different story. But right now, if he's not in the office, I think people are sort of a little apprehensive, kind of waiting for more things to happen. But it's a little bit different than if he was, had his office and sitting in his office, every day, right?
Do we know that he wasn't showing up? Because, I mean, there are rumors that he was, I think Wrestling Inc. had an article. I don't know if it was their story or they were republishing somebody's story, but the report was that he was around. So, I have a very this is such a bizarre story, and you have to kind of be careful when it's there's a company for sale. You don't want to fill in blanks here, and you don't want to mislead people, especially with this show. And we're on the Wrestling Observer website. You don't want to kind of say something that it's your opinion, but my opinion, I'm not stating a fact. My opinion is that, I do think he's going to be around, and I do think he's going to be giving his input.
So I
have a hard time. I have a real hard time believing that this guy is just he's just there for the sale, and he's just there for, just to get the deal done, and he's not involved in any other input as far as TV goes. Royal Rumble's here. Right?
Yeah.
Who's helping with that? WrestleMania is happening. Vince McMahon has been involved in every single one. I can't imagine he won't be involved. And even before he came back, my opinion was that he would be back to assist in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the sale piece of this is a very attractive story to media reporters, and we're starting to see this story get picked up in the national media, not just on like sports media, even Hollywood media. There was a podcast that I listened to frequently called The Town with Matt Bellany, and his guest was Lucas Shaw. Matt, former editor of The Hollywood Reporter. Lucas writes for Bloomberg. So these guys are in the know. And they did an entire show based off of who the possible buyers would be. And, out of all of those companies, which of those companies do you think are the companies that you would predict to probably be, on the priority list when it came to buyers?
I would say, as far as a like a media conglomerate, I would say Comcast, NBCU for sure. Um, a lot of people are leaning towards Disney, and I don't see it being Disney, considering they're looking to offload ESPN. Uh, I can't. I don't. I have a hard time with Disney, but to me, Comcast makes the most sense, considering they're very intertwined with them, and Comcast is paying them a tremendous amount of money. They have a TV rights deal happening. They want to most likely get all the properties. So right now they're paying them $240 or so million a year for Raw, plus another $200 million a year for Peacock. Plus they're paying for NXT, and they will pay, whatever that Fox deal is, $300 million or so for SmackDown. You're looking at $1 billion a year almost. It kind of makes sense for you to kind of look at this and say, well, the company's evaluation, even if it's at like $109 a share, it's still under $10 billion. We could recoup that cost in, 6 years or so. We'll save money on the TV rights. The ad revenue is directly to us. There's no kind of rev split at all. But at the end of the day, will Vince McMahon be in charge, and who will they put in charge of that brand? If they go with an Endeavor, or they go with a sovereign wealth fund like the Saudis or Qatar, most likely they would keep everything in place the way it is. And we saw Dana White's situation. They weren't quick to, slap Dana's hand. If they go private, I don't know. I've always led with Peacock being NBCU being the thing that makes the most sense, especially with the Universal property, right?
Mm-hmm.
TV, movie distribution, television distribution, and amusement park. That's a missing element that WWE has wanted for a very long time. I've had conversations with people at WWE over the years. They've considered some sort of Vegas residency. They've considered amusement parks over the last decade or so. Their IP is tremendous. How about an Undertaker roller coaster? An Undertaker haunted house? I mean, I know it's stupid to say that, but I mean, this really makes a lot of sense if you tie it in properly. I don't think Endeavor is going to get you that, and I don't think the Saudis will get you there. But if you're looking at the value and who has cash on hand, if the Saudi, and also overpaying, right? I don't think Peacock is going to pay $10 billion for this thing. I don't think Endeavor is going to pay $10 billion for this thing. But who might? The Saudis might.
Okay, so here's another question. Now, like what you said about Comcast, the reason why you kind of put them in the forefront is because they are already paying so much money for the license for the television shows. But as we know, cable and DirecTV, those subscriptions are dropping fairly quickly, right? So is that what they're paying for whatever if they buy the company, like you're saying, you may recoup the investment, but what happens if TV rights fees for WWE goes down in 5 years or in 10 years because cable is just not what it used to be, and now it is more streaming, and they still haven't, and maybe they haven't figured out how to exactly monetize that in the best way. I just think the future of the rights in of itself is really murky. And so I'm not sure that Comcast just going head over heels and saying, no, we're just going to pay for this because, we're already investing so much money in just the television show. That is something that is a little, I would be worried about that a little bit. It is unanswered. Now, the only thing that I can compare it to is the NFL. And we know the NFL is king, right? Out of the top 100 shows on cable TV, all of last year, 2022, something like 82 of them were NFL games. And NFL, I think their TV deal, they signed it for like 11 years or something. And if you think about how valuable they are to that ecosystem, you would think we're going to sign a shorter deal, and then in 5 years we're going to come back and then we're going to get double. Like, that's just how it's been working, right? But they signed a super long deal, and I don't know. No one has said anything, and I haven't really read anything on it. But I kind of wonder if the reason they did that is because they are foreseeing the cable numbers going down, 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 and they weren't going to get into a spot in 5 years where maybe they weren't going to get double like they used to. And so they sort of invested in the idea of, we're just going to go long term with this next deal and worry about that, when it gets here. But so that's kind of my thought. Do you have any thoughts on, whenever this bubble is going to burst?
Well, it really comes down to, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, right? Because I'm seeing a ton of this, and Steven in our chat room is bringing this up, and tons of other people. They brought up Amazon and Amazon and Apple.
Generally, Apple,
comes
and
up.
Google are always going to be involved here.
Here's the reality, okay? And this is, I come from an ad sales background. You cannot generate the ad sales for digital that you can with network or cable television. It's not near it yet. And I listen, viewership, consumption, that's great. And you and I both know this. You're in the digital space, and so am I. I've sold digital ads for the last decade and a half. You cannot get the same amount of ad revenue, ad dollars that you can on cable, because Amazon, for all that they do, there's multiple parts here. One, Peacock benefits from having WWE on their property because it brings more people to them, right? At least 1 million people. Amazon already has your money. Most people already have Amazon Prime, unless Amazon is looking to launch another service, which I don't think. I know they're looking to split off their sports, but it's not going to be a separate, monthly fee for that.
Right.
Amazon also does not have the same institution in place that Peacock does, or Fox does, or Paramount does, to sell ads and have the metrics to back it up.
Yes.
Cable is king still. And listen, I'm one of those people 10 years ago said cable will be dead in 10 years, and I was wrong. Because ad revenue generates everything. First Run Sports is still king on cable. The NFL is getting more money than ever for ads. WWE's probably, I would say Fox is, I don't have the exact number, but when I spoke to someone at Fox, when they went over, I said, well, what are the ad pricing? How are you guys selling the ad? Because it all comes down to, you're paying them $300 million a year or whatever they were paying them. Mm-hmm. I don't, whatever that number is. How much are you spending on that 30-second ad on Fox, Fox Network, to make sure the money is even? What was said to me is that they make a profit, but they're closer to breaking even than making like, oh my gosh, look at how much money we're making off the show.
Right.
So if that's the case with Fox, and I'm sure that's probably the case with USA, where they're making money for sure. They're not losing money on this show. I don't think Amazon's going to be able to do that. Amazon's probably going to be at a loss when it comes to selling the ad revenue, and that's where you're going to make your money. So,
okay, I agree.
TV rights deal is important. If you're a private firm, and it's important if you're a network established brand, to kind of continue with the ad sales and continue with your secondary platform that you're putting them on, like Peacock. But I can't see it being Amazon or Google or Apple to make money with this. I don't think they'll be able to.
I agree with you 100% today, right? But in
today, not 5 years from now, not 10 years
right,
from now. I'm talking about
in
today.
5 years from now, that could change. Now, here are some of the reasons why. Apple is basically investing in, or they already paid for the rights to the MLS, and so they're going to have all of the MLS's games. So that's sort of a test, though. I think that's going to be a little bit of a subscription model, but there are breaks in games where you do have to show ads, right? So there's going to be something there. The Amazon deal with the NFL this year was kind of that test, right? They need to build out an ad network if they're going to get into live sports. Same with Netflix and all these other companies. If you get into live sports, you have to build out an ad network, because your sports are just not this. In the timeouts, you don't just go on the field and listen to what the players are talking about. There's nothing happening, so there are natural stoppages for ads. Apple did the deal with baseball this year, and I thought it was poor because there were stoppages. The team is up, and then they get the 3 outs, and then you go to a break, and there was like nothing to show. And so as a fan, usually when that happens, when we're watching on TV, we just go to our phones or whatever. But the blank screen was even more annoying than commercials. So all of these services are going to need to build out, these ad teams and all this stuff. But here's the thing that I'm wondering about when it comes to what you just said is the key for these big companies is that they have money to essentially waste. Apple and Google, YouTube TV just bought the NFL direct ticket, right? They bought that whole thing. And Amazon, they have the money to go, hey, we want to try to drive more eyeballs to our service. So getting WWE to Amazon would be for them to say, oh, since we have your WWE eyeballs, like here's all the other stuff that we now want you to watch or to see or whatever. And then you have to have your Amazon Prime subscription in order to see the content. So I think it will be used sort of in the same way, where it's not really there to make giant money, but it is there to put a magnifying glass on other things in whatever you're building. But right now, I agree with you in that all three of those companies, they aren't ready for something like Raw. Now, does that mean that at some point, can you do, and this is what I think Nick Khan is probably going to do, is, you have your broadcast rights for both of these television shows. You have your Peacock, and whether it's going to be Peacock or not, for your network, you have your second day rights. And then is there opportunities like that Facebook show that they did with the mixed match challenge stuff? Are there opportunities to put on more content on some of these streaming platforms to then not only work with these companies, but get another revenue source, whether it's a giant revenue source or not? You're sort of creating, here's what we can deliver to you. And if that works, then the next time this thing comes up, we're going to get even more. You're creating another revenue stream. So that's the piece that I think is going to be really interesting as well.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts here. And also if they were to leave Peacock and they go to whatever, Amazon, how fast can Amazon build them a platform for all their content? That's another thing. We know that it took them a while to do a Peacock. I'm leaning towards, personally, if I lean towards Peacock. Also, what does Vince want to do? Is he going to stay? Is he just here for this and then he's going to leave?
That's the next part of the question that I was going to ask you.
I don't listen, man, I don't know what he's thinking right now. I do know what people around him were thinking a couple days before this letter got sent to the board.
Yeah.
We had that conversation and there was no I was told straight out that people that you think that would want him back don't.
Yeah.
Key Vince allies don't want him. They're thriving in this environment. So I don't think Vince is back just for this. I don't think he's going to be like, okay, I got the deal done. See you guys later. I'm here for the money. He's back to be in power. That's my opinion. My opinion. And the opinion of people that work there. So
the reason why I wanted to ask you this is because when the Wall Street Journal story comes out, and then we see Vince's own press release that his team puts out, I was talking to Dave because I just kind of wanted to get his. Dave has covered Vince McMahon more thoroughly than any human alive, I believe.
yes.
Dave, like he knows more about Vince than anybody else. And so I was like, okay, what's the reason why Vince wants to sell now? Like what is the benefit to selling now? And he said, and I can say this because we talked about it on Wrestling Observer Radio. He said, well, if Vince can find a way to be part of the leadership team again, then when he does sell, then it's harder to remove him. But if he was to sell from the outside and not be involved in the day-to-day, it would be really hard for the people that buy that thing to then remove all the people who are in leadership roles now to put Vince back in. So that was Dave's opinion on why now, why is this happening now? It was so, Vince thinks that the market is right. And I kind of wonder if they may have missed it a little bit just because of so much of the uncertainty in 2023 when it comes to these large media companies spending money. But if that is the case and they can sell, he's going to probably want to sell to someone who is willing to put him back in charge, right? Like that would make the most sense.
Doesn't that mean private, right? Leaning more toward. I mean, listen, he's had such a relationship with NBCU for 40 some odd years. But the wrong person comes into play and you're gone. But if you could work something out with an Endeavor, I'm throwing Endeavor as a brand that people know.
Well, as we know, Endeavor, UFC helped Endeavor go public, right?
Yeah.
So they probably wouldn't want to bring it back private. But what about? So here's the one that I want to get your opinion on. I don't know too much about CAA, but there has been a thought that maybe they want to do the Endeavor game plan and buy this company that then helps them go public
because of the Nick Khan connection.
The Nick Khan connection. Nick's got people there. I mean, it's an interesting idea. It's not. It doesn't sound like it would be one that I would put high on the top 5 list or whatever, though.
I saw the Nick Khan story that a lot of people are publishing saying that, if this deal were to go through, Nick, if he could facilitate this deal, he would get something around, more than what AEW gets a year for their network, their thing. And a lot of people are calling it a broker fee. You can't use that word. You cannot be a broker and be an officer of a company. So a lot of people are using the wrong term. A broker, that's illegal if you're a broker. But he is an officer, and he can't work as a broker, but he can be incentivized in some way. So it could be a retention package or a severance plan, depending on whatever the owners want to do. But I do think that Nick Khan connection is a big deal, and he has a huge reach, especially with sports media. So it could be. But again, why? He could come in today and be in power in that company, right? Vince. He's already there. He just said it already. They set the bylaw already. He changed the bylaw stating that essentially they cannot do anything without his approval. They can't sell the company. They cannot get a TV rights deal because he holds majority of the Class B, 81%. I'm curious to know why the sale, unless someone is offering you some astronomical double over market value price. I'm still trying to understand what the point of a sale is, considering they have so much cash on hand. This is not a company, especially publicly traded companies rarely want to sell like this if they are financially doing what WWE does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious as to why.
The one that the one that I love, and this is one that we'd sort of been talking about forever, is what if The Rock was with some deep pocket folks, and he kind of becomes the spokesperson or the lead person? That's always a fun one, but I don't know. Do you think The Rock and Vince would work together, or do you think The Rock would be like, nope, I gotta be in control here?
Um, it's hard, right? Like, uh, the I would say a lot of people view Vince in a very different way. They view him, we hear it all the time that he was like a father figure to them and he gave them an opportunity. So I think people like Dwayne and Austin, they're a little softer with Vince when it comes to criticizing him because of the opportunities they've been given because of him. But I don't know. I mean, The Rock he's a mega alpha guy. We
Mm-hmm.
know how hard he works. If there was, I've always seen him being tied in somehow. We already have the XFL tie-in. What if it's another firm that wants to buy him, take him private, have Dwayne lead it, and keep things in place?
Is The Rock on with WME?
I don't know. Is he?
So I believe he was with CAA at some point, and then left for WME. But that was like over 10 years ago. So I don't know if there's
Yeah.
any updated information. But what if Endeavor did want it, and there's a Rock tie-in right there? Rock and Dana White are also friends. Uh, Maybe that would be the way in. I don't know, but okay.
Uh,
So
I do think the Endeavor stuff is very interesting. But does Endeavor have let's say upwards of $7-8 billion right now? The market value is 6.2 billion on Friday. We're already up another couple points. They're at $90 now a share. They closed 2.5 points up today. 275. So I mean, this is going to be around a $7 to $8 billion company by the
mhm.
time the sale happens. Maybe a little bit more. So who has that kind of cash on hand? I don't know if Endeavor, has that ability. Or do they want to?
Okay, so the last piece of this, and I think it relates to the next topic that I wanted to talk about. I believe it was Fightful Sean that reported that Jay White is probably not going to re-sign with New Japan. And so immediately the thought is, oh, so where does he go? Is it going to be WWE? Is it going to be AEW? And my immediate thought was, if I was Jay, I would like hold off on WWE until I knew what was really going on, right? Because let's say you sign a 3-year deal with WWE, and then all of a sudden in 6 months, Vince is back in charge, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is what you would be worried about, because with Vince being back in charge of talent versus Triple H, as we've seen, Triple H is adding people, and Vince was all about cutting people. Now, maybe if they do sell, they're gonna have to cut people anyways. But that just the insecurity of that, I think, would be a little weird. And I don't know if that means he's going to go to AEW or not. But if I was Jay, I'd just be like, okay, we need to figure out what the landscape is here. Do you think, we've heard FTR, possibly going back to WWE. I wonder how much of this puts all of these upcoming free agents or the talent who wants to, either go back or leave. I wonder how much of this changes all of those plans.
Well, it's uncertainty, and that's never good when you're trying to make a decision. You don't want to go towards uncertainty, and there's uncertainty with both companies now. AEW
Yep.
has a ton of uncertainty because they're in the middle of a negotiation as well. We saw the negative year, I would say, that they had last year. WWE was on the upward swing until this happened. It depends on what you want. If you want to, for Jay White, where does he benefit the most? I would have defaulted to AEW that he would benefit AEW, but I don't know if that's the case anymore because AEW has a ton of talent, amazing top tier talent that's not really doing much. So
And would Jay White come in at the highest level? I'm not so sure.
in where in AEW or WWE?
AEW.
I think he would probably come in at the highest, a higher level. I mean, who does if he goes to WWE, he's going to main roster, not NXT, or maybe
Yes.
not.
So if he would go to AEW, he's probably leading another faction, just like the Bullet Club, and maybe there are some connections with former Bullet Club members that could be put in a team with it. I just don't see, like, when I watch AEW television, and this is different from watching New Japan. The stuff that he does so well at New Japan, you really need to let that stuff breathe, man. And in
Yeah.
AEW, they don't let anything breathe. Everything is just rapid fire because they don't want to lose any viewers. And so, but on the flip side, I don't know that WWE is perfect for him either, because I can just see, his style and what he does to get over not being gimmicky enough for that
Yeah.
style. So it's very
Well, he
interesting.
comes
He's going to be
out.
a very interesting free agent.
What happens? He shows up on Raw, and then all of a sudden, The Miz comes out and cuts a promo, and he's like, "Nobody knows you. It doesn't matter
Exactly.
what you've done. I'm The Miz. I'm a former WWE champion." And then he does a program with The Miz, and then Baron Corbin shows up, and he has a program with Baron Corbin, and eventually he wrestles Seth Rollins, and they have a great match. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
WWE
Yeah.
way of
Yeah.
doing things.
That's a
I,
bluepeint.
Cody always could work in WWE because Cody was there, and he has the name, and people know Cody Rhodes.
Cody
I
wants to be
don't know.
bigger than life. He
Of
absolutely
course,
wants that.
yeah. He wants that. That's what he thrives to. And Cody wants more than just wrestling. When he left in what was that? 2016? When did he leave WWE?
Yeah, good question. I don't even remember.
Whatever it was, 2015, 2016, whatever. Whenever he left, I remember listening to an interview he did, and I was shocked. He said, "I don't plan on wrestling full time. I don't plan on doing this for too much longer. My aspirations are to go into film and other things." And this guy went and did indie shows and was buying people rings and was working for free because he wanted to do it just to help a little bit. He didn't intend on starting AEW. WWE is the answer if you want more than just wrestling. I
Yes.
don't know what Jay White wants to do. I think he's, I mean, the top 5 talent in the world, arguably. Who will do more justice for him? Will it be WWE or will it be AEW? WWE surprises you sometimes. People did not believe that a guy like Seth Rollins could get over in that company, and look at him now. He's it's been over a decade. He's established. He's the top guy.
Jay White definitely seems more pro wrestler than sports entertainment. But that's just kind of keying in on the joke. And if Jericho could show up at PWG, then
I know,
anything
which
is
is
on the table.
unbelievable. Which is unbelievable. But here's another thing, right? The Bucks contract's running out. They're
Yep.
going to go in a contract year. Kenny's going to be coming up. And WWE did want Kenny.
They did.
I
They
don't
absolutely did.
think he would go. I mean, but you know what's funny? I always stuck to this, and I still stick to it, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of crap for it. I always thought that if Kenny went there, they would have done right by him.
You think so?
In the beginning, they would have done right by him. I think they saw at that point how successful Styles was and how impactful Styles was for them, and I think they would have wanted to follow that same concept with him.
I don't know, though, because as good as AJ Styles is, and some of this has to do with his age, obviously, he's not as exciting as he was even 3 years ago, I don't think. Like, his style is
No,
very,
45.
very WWE, style these days with AJ. But okay, so if we think, I think Jay White is perfect for New Japan, but I can also see why he would want to come stateside, because there's going to be more money out here. He sees the landscape of, AEW versus WWE. It's probably a good time for talent. It's probably a good time for me to be available. And so more power to him. But on the flip side, and it's kind of what I was asking you before pivoting to Jay, but the idea of the market being favorable for talent because you have two competing companies. And I just wonder how much that changes with Vince. If just Vince being around kind of kills the idea of folks wanting to come from the AEW side to WWE, because that keeps both companies fresh. Like if you just have
Yeah.
the opportunity for people to go back and forth, you can keep reinventing. But if this idea that Vince is the scary boogeyman, I wonder if that does kind of halt that a little bit. Like
100%.
what would FTR say today, knowing that at some point they're going to be a free agent and they're going to get offers from both sides? It's got to be a little deflating to know, oh my gosh, is this dude going to be back again? He just sees us as, workers.
Or forget about Vince, the new owners. What's their concept? What's their direction for WWE? Where do they want to go? Maybe they want to go in a whole different direction that WWE's not even doing right now. Uncertainty, AEW's going to benefit from this uncertainty on the WWE side. A talent told me when I spoke to them the other day that, everybody thought, Hunter coming in, the grass is greener on that side. Well, you know what? There's a big yellow stain in that grass, and it's Vince holding his leg up. I think AEW benefits from this for the current time. I don't know, going 6 months from now, who the hell knows what's going to happen? But it's a crazy year. I don't want to speculate on the AEW side because I don't know what their TV rights are going to look like right now. But on the WWE side, I can tell you that people are getting a little nervous because who's the potential buyer? What do they want to do? What's the direction you want? You've established these guys, top guys. Roman's safe, Seth is safe, these guys are safe. But what if they turn around? They're like, okay, we just bought this thing for $7 to $8 billion. We got to cut costs. Do we need, I'm throwing a number, 200 professional wrestlers on our roster? No.
Yeah, and
it's
NXT,
a TV show.
which doesn't make money necessarily because it is a building block, and it is not. They do get. I guess they do get TV money, but they're not touring or anything, right? They're just housing this place. So here's another thing, and we'll start talking about Dynamite here for a second, in a second. But on the podcast that I was talking about with Bellany and Lucas Shaw, and they're more big picture Hollywood guys than they are like wrestling bubble people. But when they were talking about AEW, Bellany was like, does AEW even really matter? Like, are they a really, competition? And Lucas Shaw said, yeah, they are. They matter somewhat. He said, but they're owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. And Bellany went, oh, that's bad. Just because of this perception that Zaslav is, he's got this plan, and I guess their stock is actually going back up. But he's got this plan where he has to cut a lot of money. So the perception from Hollywood or from these media reporters is that being a part of WBD is not actually a good thing for Tony Khan. Now, Tony Khan has consistently said that they are great partners, and he sees nothing but great things in the future. So we'll see on that. But the perception from a non-hardcore wrestling fan was WBD is not good for AEW's business.
I don't know. I don't think WBD has the ad sales that they did prior to the merger in place that's as supportive. I can tell you that. Not that they're not supportive. I just think that there was a lot of excitement from people that I spoke to on the WBD, the Warner Brothers side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. I don't know. A lot of that, again, it's big picture stuff. They're probably making that assumption based off of their cost cutting that they've done, and they cut that Batwoman movie, and they cut this and they cut that. They're
pulling stuff off of HBO Max that wasn't getting viewers so that they could relicense it elsewhere, which is a smart
but
thing.
Maybe this benefits them though. Maybe this benefits AEW because they know it's programming that that you have over 1 million people a week that are watching. In DVR +3 or +7, whatever you want to measure it, there is over 1 million people a week watching AEW content that is on Warner Brothers Discovery. So, what other show do they have that has first run, live action programming other than the NBA and NHL that they could do this with? Not much. So they do benefit. Warner will benefit from AEW. It's just a matter of who's seeing it that way,
Okay, so you mentioned the NBA, and Bill Simmons predicted that the NBA and Warner Brothers Discovery would not. I don't remember if he said that they would not be doing the next deal or if they would just be doing a lesser deal. And that's what I've heard, is that maybe they don't get the biggest package that they currently have now, and maybe they have less games or whatever. But if they're pulling back on, maybe the number 2 live sports property out there, it's not even maybe, it is. It's just behind the NFL. It's pretty far behind the NFL, but that's the number 2 sports property, and they want to pull back from that. That's interesting, right? Because that's the one that you kind of you bend over backwards for, because that relationship is so strong, and that's what your network is known for. TNT is known for NBA basketball. Like, that's what they're known
Well,
by.
you know
And
what,
if
then?
they
I'm going to tell you
decide to pull,
something,
yeah,
and I'll be blunt about it. Then it's sheer incompetence on your sales team. If you can't, and if you've negotiated this deal and you're suffering at selling those ads for NBA games, and they do have top tier NBA games, then you totally screwed up your sales team, and somebody is not connected to the right person. There's no reason why the NBA and the NFL and MLB will suffer in ad sales, considering that they show, the NBA shows growth. The NFL shows growth. Baseball's a little older. The NHL, the NHL is actually getting a little younger and swerving.
that was a great deal for them, for the NHL, by the way.
Yeah, it was a great deal. Have you ever looked at NHL live attendance as far as their demo goes?
Mm-mm.
There is a huge. I know about local New York Rangers Islanders. Do you know that it has a tremendous youthful female audience now for live games in attendance, but not viewership? It hasn't translated yet. That is an untapped market, and I think a lot of people see that with the NHL, and I think that's why people are looking at the NHL as a up and coming property now for television, because it's catering to a demo that's untapped. These are all logistical sales pieces that you have to look at. I don't think I think AEW is going to be fine on Turner. I don't fear that they're going to get canceled or they're going to lowball them. Maybe, I mean, it depends on what you want. I don't see them getting $100 million a year, but I don't see them getting whatever they're getting now. So maybe somewhere in the middle. I think that's growth. I think that's positive for them. It's also low cost. You're not losing money by having AEW. But, the NBA, if you can't sell an ad for the NBA and you're not making the money that you want, then that's on you. I don't think it's on the NBA.
Okay, so let's talk about AEW Dynamite tomorrow. It's a big show for them. Now, they are in an interesting spot from the perspective of they have done some really fun live shows for their live crowds. The Seattle crowd was awesome. The Portland crowd was awesome, but the ratings don't necessarily reflect how awesome that those live crowds thought those shows were. And what I'm wondering is, because as we know, AEW live attendance was last year this time was doing fantastic, and now it has dropped. Like, I think the number for the Dynamite that's going to be at the Cow Palace, I think it's like 3,000 something. That, and that's coming up in a month and in 3 weeks or whatever. And so it looks like, something like Seattle was going to be great for them because they have a lot of local talent who work for them. But it did look like they were trying to focus on the live crowd, and maybe, at least for me, the TV side of it, I didn't really relate as much to Darby Allin necessarily. I related a lot to Bryan Danielson, but I wonder, do you think that they're going to focus some of these live shows a little more towards the live audience so that they can, continue to go back into these cities successfully? And does that then hurt the television product, knowing that TV ratings are kind of, the end all be all for you as far as your big?
I don't know.
Stream?
I think that this obviously, this decline I mean, it has to do with the fact that CM Punk's not there. That plays a part in this, for sure. You could kind of look at this and come up with all the reasons in the world that that's not why. But I truly, I look at it and I say, well, listen, live attendance. Can another 1,000 or 2,000 people makes a big difference, and who's coming for that? Probably you want to go see CM Punk. Here's one, right? The Safe Mart Center in Fresno, California, right, for Dynamite. 5,000 right now. They've done 4,526. The current capacity is 5,300. Just 800 tickets available. First run in California, there should be 8,000 tickets. They're obviously capping it off somewhere. Here we go. UBS Arena, AEW, Wednesday, April 5th. They've sold 4,000 tickets already. The current capacity is for 6,300 in a building that does like 14,000.
Yeah.
What does that say? Not good. I mean, not terrible, but not great. I'm trying to find the Cow Palace number here. Let me see if I can find it. I'm doing a Dave. I'm pulling up my notes. Look at this. I need to shuffle the paper. Okay, here we go. Cow Palace, right? March 1st. Current capacity is 5,199. Tickets distributed 2,500. There's 2,600 tickets available. That's not great.
And that this is the same building where Rey Mysterio beat Brock Lesnar. And so there were more than 5,000 people in that building.
Yeah. That's not great. That's a big building. It's a big old building, but it's a big building. It's growing pains, really, and they haven't, you lost that top guy. I think a lot of it was people got deflated, and so did I. The MJF stuff deflated me. The CM Punk stuff deflated me. You didn't have Kenny Omega for 8 months. He comes, he leaves. I think now is going to be the rebuilding year, and they're going to have to come up with a top program that people are really heavily invested in. And what better way to bring in CM Punk and do that trios match, huh? With FTR and him versus Kenny and the Bucks. You know what? You want to sell out? You want to have a 20,000 person in attendance at Grand Slam again? That's how you're going to end up doing it. I'm not saying it's going to be Punk, right? I'm just having fun here, but
okay. But how much of it is
an act like that?
How much of it is they were the new dandy? Fans were excited for it. And then WWE pulls off WrestleMania with Cody, with Steve Austin, with Johnny Knoxville, and Sami Zayn. As much as I didn't like that match, so many people love that match. And it just made they were like, okay, AEW, you guys are the young upstart, you're doing great, but we're going to show you how to put on a giant show that is going to look fantastic to the bigger sports world. How much of it was that? How much of it was WrestleMania just blowing everything else out of the water?
I think a lot of that, it's all optics, right? Cody leaving was a big hit. I think AEW's fine. I think they're going to be okay. And AEW's a wrestling product. Let's not forget that. WWE's less wrestling than AEW is. I'm hoping that they kind of get on track here in this year. I really want them to get on track, and I want those numbers to grow, and I want it to be super successful because I think it's great for wrestling. But you're not going to outcompete WWE ever. I think that's a very unrealistic expectation because these people have been, in the wrestling business for decades and decades, and you're 4 years old as a company. You've hit that little hurdle, but how do you bring it back? Captivating TV, must watch TV. But bring in Vince Russo, do a higher power angle. There you go. That's how you do it, right? Isn't that the answer? Isn't that how you do it?
Oh man,
you bring in Hogan. You know what? Bill Goldberg, he could try. No, I mean really.
Okay, it may sound like I'm making a joke here. Best thing for AEW, Vince takes over again. That's the best thing for them.
100%.
That is a great opportunity for them. to get back into what they were doing. Okay, quickly, because we only have
Yeah.
I don't know, 9-ish minutes. I wanted to just go over this forum card for this weekend. I'm sorry, for tomorrow, and see your thoughts on what's going on here. So it is the match 7 of the best of 7 series between the Elite and the Death Triangle, and I apologize in advance for this statement because after watching Kenny Omega in New Japan, I almost don't want to watch him back in
Oh my
AEW
God.
because
I know, dude. Same.
he's kind of goofy and funny in AEW, but he was the man in New Japan. Like, that was the Kenny Omega that everyone was like, this is the dude. Like, he's the guy. I don't know. So I mean, I hope that they have a great match, and it's I don't know if I necessarily needed to see 7 of these things, but I know a lot of people are excited, so I don't want to take that away from them. But whoo, Kenny Omega in New Japan is so much better than the version that we see
I
in
couldn't
AEW.
believe it. I watched that match. I didn't take my eyes off the TV for 1 second. I mean, he was the Kenny that everybody fell in love with as far as
Yeah,
professional wrestling goes. He really was on top. Now, can he do that can he do that regularly? I don't think so, nor should he. But we never saw that Kenny Omega in AEW.
no,
Even with those unbelievable matches, he never went into that gear. But maybe he will now.
maybe. But I think the television breaks, like the natural commercial breaks, really take away it just takes away the rhythm of a wrestling match for me. So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to go, I'm into this, and then the commercial comes and I'm just like this. And then the picture in picture doesn't help because I'm just like, I'd rather them just go to commercial. I don't want to see what's going on in this small corner.
But even on the
But
pay-per-view side, dude, we never got to see that
yeah,
Kenny.
no, I agree. Okay, John Moxley against Hangman Page finally, after these last weeks of promos that they're cutting on each other. I know Hangman said that he's going to mail Moxley a videotape of the beating that he's going to give him. I'm not sure Moxley has a VCR, so I don't know if that's going to actually work. But what do you think about this program?
It's okay. I'm into it. Are you not?
I don't know what the beef is really. I'm not exactly sure what the beef is on either side. Like, Moxley's just like, yeah, I kicked your ass and I knocked you out, big deal. And Hangman's like, I forgot what was his excuse. The first excuse was awesome, where he said something about he looked on the phone screen and didn't recognize the son or something, or forgot the son's name. And then just everything after that I think has been a little weak on Hangman's side. So
Yeah.
am I looking forward to 2 really good professional wrestlers have a wrestling match? Yeah, of course. Like, those guys are gems, but the build and the feud, and they were trying to build off of something that happened in real life. That hasn't really done anything for me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I want to I'm into it, but I feel like it could have been more.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, we saw it already, right?
Yeah.
We
Yep.
saw it, and there was a stop and go, and I get that there was a stop and go with this, but okay, so Hangman wins. That's where I'm seeing it go, and then what? I don't know. I got to tell you the CM Punk stuff.
I think
It never
Hangman.
rubbed off of me with the Hangman stuff.
What do you mean?
Like it took me out of it. And it's nothing with him. It's not his fault, but he had that issue happen. Then he went away for a little bit, and then he came back.
Yeah, Punk kind of
You
ate him
know?
up, didn't you think?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, they're different types of promos for sure, but yeah, I don't think Hangman came out of that uh, feud with Punk any better than he went in, for sure. Okay,
No.
Bryan Danielson versus Takeshita in a match that is going to happen. There's no, it's just going to be a really good wrestling match.
I think that I'm hoping that that's an unbelievable match because I want to see him do great. Do you know what they were filming at PWG?
Dave just said he thought it was like an angle with Don Callis for Takeshita, because I think whatever Takeshita does in AEW is going to be based around, Don has been scouting him, right? So whenever they make that move with Takeshita to actually put him in a real angle, it's going to be based around that. So whether it's going to be with the Elite or maybe the Elite are going to antagonize him, I actually think it works better that way. Like the way that I thought about it was Takeshita, he loses, and I thought a great first win would be Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega kind of going in not as the New Japan character necessarily, but as the AEW guy, where he's, he's top of the food chain, and who's this Takeshita kid, and they have this great match, and Takeshita wins. I thought that would be a great way to kind of put him on the map, but I don't know. But it sounds like it's going to be around this Don Callis angle.
We'll see what happens. Curious about it.
Okay, now we only got 3 minutes left, so we'll end it with this one because I do want your thoughts. The Killer and the Pillar, Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker versus Saraya and Toni Storm. Does Mercedes show up tomorrow? She doesn't have to wrestle. Does she just show up?
I mean, people are going to be disappointed if she doesn't.
Yes.
Right? A lot of people are going to be disappointed if she doesn't. So I would imagine. Listen, they did a wink and a nod on TV, right? And
the boss,
right? They did it. So why do that if that is not what you're intending? You're not they're not swerving you, bro.
maybe Vince is back.
Maybe they are, but I don't. God, I would love that. I would die. I really would. But you know what I mean? Like, it's counterintuitive to do that. If you're not intending, if you never intended on her being the partner, and the internet got worked up and they think she's the partner, and they want her to be the partner, and now you even acknowledge it in some capacity on TV, and she's not, where was the benefit here of, was it, aha, I got you because I'm a heel?
Yeah.
I don't know. That doesn't benefit anyone. So I'm leaning towards she will show up in some capacity.
I hope so. But I do kind of think that maybe the New Japan show will be the first time that she actually wrestles. But then again, they sold that show out. So I don't even know if it matters. Well, I guess it matters for the Fight pay-per-view that they want to sell. So that it will probably matter there. So maybe they wouldn't want her to wrestle. Maybe
Paige also shows up at that New Japan pay-per-view, right? You could do something there, and you kind of build something together. There's a lot of moving parts. Also, what is happening with that Ring of Honor deal, right? Tony had said we will find out as soon as the show's over.
Hopefully soon.
So hopefully soon, because something's happening. New Japan. The name of the show slipping my mind.
Strong.
New Japan Strong is done.
Yeah.
So they need something.
All right. I just saw a Brian Alvarez tweet that says, let's give this Lance show a try. So I think that was a little bit of an alert to us to hurry up and get off.
We got to go.
Get off air, you guys. And Brian's sick, too. So if he's that excited to do this show with Lance and sick, then we really better need to get out of here.
We got to go. We got to get out of
here. All right. So, so that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed going through the whole Vince thing with you. So we'll be back next week to talk, I'm sure, more stuff relating to this story. It's going to be the story of the year. For Andrew, I am Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.